Good afternoon. My name is Bethany Orozco. I'm the statewide recruitment director for the EnCorps STEM Teachers Program. Welcome to our EnCorps Live question and answer session. Today is a unique live Q&A session. We actually have several EnCorps team members on the line who I'm very excited to introduce you to. I'm going to quickly go over some logistics. So all attendees are muted right now, and throughout the presentation, you can go ahead and ask questions via the question box. We will see those pop up. And throughout the webinar, I will pause a couple of times to answer any questions that come up. And I'll also give some time at the end of the webinar to make sure that we've answered everyone's questions. We will be taking about 30 to 45 minutes for this Q&A session. And we are really looking forward to speaking to all of you on the line, telling you more about the EnCorps STEM Teachers Program, and learning just a little bit about you as well. This webinar will also be recorded, so you'll receive a recording about 3 hours after the webinar ends that you can refer back to. And we'll also provide our email addresses if you have questions to follow up. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll do some introductions and talk about the EnCorps mission. And then we're really going to dive pretty deep into what it is like to be an EnCorps fellow. And that's why we have our program team on the line. The people who you'll be hearing from today are all former teachers. Some are also former principals. And they are really our teacher coaches. So they're the people that provide all of the support and training to our teaching fellows once you are a fellow in EnCorps program. So we'll dive deep into our professional development. We'll talk about guest teaching and the additional supports that EnCorps provides. And then the last thing that we'll get into is a little bit about our application and selection process. And again, some more time for questions. So to give some quick introductions, again, my name is Bethany Orozco. I'm the statewide recruitment and communications director for EnCorps. I've actually been working with EnCorps for over 5 years now, and I am also a former math and science teacher. I was actually inspired to go into teaching for a couple of reasons. One, my mom was a kindergarten teacher for over 25 years, and she really inspired me with the work that she did with her kindergarten students. And two, I had a math degree, and I decided that instead of going into actuarial science, I wanted to work with students and really make more of an impact. So I moved across the country from Minnesota and began teaching in the Los Angeles area in a lower income, high needs school. So I want to make some introductions of who all is joining me on the line. You'll see the photographs here of our program team and our recruitment team. And today we have Charles, Joel, and Teresa joining us. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask the three of them to just tell you a little bit about their background as a teacher and the role that they have at EnCorps. And so we'll start with Charles.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you, Charles.
Okay. Well, I work in San Diego with San Diego Fellows, and I am a retired teacher and principal, and very devoted to working with aspiring teachers in my teaching and administrative career. So I hope to bring some of those skills to bear in coaching and mentoring and finding placements in schools for you all over San Diego County.
Excellent. Thank you, Charles. I'll go next over to Joel. And Joel, if you're muted, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself right now, and then we'll be able to hear you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. You hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. My name is Joel Julian. I'm the Northern California Program Director, specifically in the Bay Area. And I am also a former teacher and principal. Did both combined for about 25 years or so. And I'm relatively new to EnCorps. but I've been around since last summer, and I'm very eager to be working with all of you and all of our fellows in the Bay Area, trying to help them to emerge and develop as new teaching professionals and that sort of thing. So that's my story, and welcome to our webinar.
Thank you, Joel. And then lastly, we will hop over to Teresa. Teresa, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you real quick. Oh, looks like you need to actually do it, Teresa. Give us just one moment as we figure out the sound controls here.
Hello.
There we go.
Hi, everyone. Yes, sorry
hey,
for
perfect.
technical difficulty. Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm the LA program coordinator. I am coming to EnCorps, new to EnCorps, coming from the classroom, about 10 years in teaching English in high schools throughout South LA. I was part of the district intern program in LA Unified, and I'm just really excited to help our fellows through the pathways and getting into the classrooms.
Excellent. Thank you, Teresa. All right, so we actually want to hear from all of you on the line. So the question that we would love you to answer in the question box is both why are you interested in exploring teaching as a second career, and what STEM industry are you coming from? So just tell us a little bit about you, and we'll give you about 60 seconds or so to type into the question box. All right, I'm seeing some lots of responses coming in. So I'm just going to read off a couple of them. I think this is kind of fun to see who's on the line. So we have business and technology, mechanical engineer on the line, behavioral science research. I see a scientific researcher, air quality and energy, electrical engineering. Wonderful. And some people are saying that they are interested in exploring a career that might be more fulfilling, wanting to have more impact. So excellent. Keep those responses coming in if you haven't yet typed in. We are just as eager to get to know you as you are to learn about the EnCorps program. And so we'd just love to hear a little bit about you. And I just want to, again, thank you for being on the line with us. All of your backgrounds sound amazing, and it is people like you that we really need in our classrooms to be able to provide real-world experience and really connect academics to the real world. So we're going to talk a little bit about why it is that EnCorps exists. And so I'm going to actually toss it over to Teresa to tell you a little bit about our mission.
Sure. So we know that in the classrooms, teachers make a huge difference. So when it comes to student achievement, it's really excellent teachers that is the #1 factor in ensuring that students are able to achieve well in the classroom. So we know from research that encountering an above average teacher for 5 years in a row could help overcome the achievement gap. But if you look at our schools in California, since 2014, there's really a shortage of teachers, especially in science and math. And if we take a look at data even closer, we can see that we know that we believe that all students should have a great STEM education. They should have excellent teachers in the classrooms, but this is not happening currently. This isn't true. Our STEM education in the United States is lacking, especially for minority and low-income students. So you can see in the graphs there kind of a depiction of what is happening with the different ethnicities and students overall. In the most recent results from the Smarter Balance assessments, which is an exam that students take in California, 39% of students met or exceeded the math standards in California, which is pretty low, right? 39%. But then if you look and we break it down by ethnicity, it's even worse. The racial achievement gap still persists. So you see that 54% of white students met or exceeded the math standards in 2018, but only 27% of Latino students and only 20% of African American students actually met or exceeded this standard. So we really want to find solutions, right? We believe that all of you are STEM industry leaders, are experts in the fields. You bring technical skills, leadership, and more importantly, real world expertise and experience to public schools, and have the ability to deliver an authentic, rigorous, and relevant STEM education to students who need it most. So you all are part of the solution, and we're tapping into this valuable resource that no one else is tapping into to engage our highest need students in science and math in classrooms that need it the most.
Thank you so much, Teresa. We're going to now go over to Joel, who will talk to us a little bit about the STEM teaching pathway that EnCorps provides and the benefits that our fellows receive.
All right, thank you, Bethany. When you become an EnCorps STEM fellow, you have entered into a special group. It is a group made up of industry professionals who have a desire and a sense of urgency around teaching youth in a school that really needs you a lot. The fellowship is a really rigorous program, and it's one of the steps that you will take in your teaching career. And what we offer is an opportunity for you to have immediate field experience, working at a school in your local area, typically, and working with students that have high needs as what we call a guest teacher, all right? During that process, you're going to receive mentorship from EnCorps staff. So in my region, that would be me. In San Diego, that would be Jen, and in San Diego, it's Charles, and in Los Angeles, it's Teresa and Angel. And so during that process, you are also being supported in your credential guidance. So oftentimes folks find that the credentialing process in California is very difficult. It's sometimes convoluted and complex. And so we support you through that process and try to make it easy for you. Of course, going into a credential program is not free. So there are scholarship opportunities that we present to you. And then we also, as an organization, offer some of those ourselves. We have a robust slate of professional development opportunities, primarily through our Google Classroom format, which I'll talk about in a minute. And you also have a collaborative cohort of peers, both online, virtually, and in person, where you get to share ideas and get support and share best practices or see best practices that work in schools. And lastly, you have an opportunity to work in a variety of school districts and or charter networks. So one of the things that we do is we partner with schools that have a high percentage of free and reduced lunch count. So that's one indicator of a school with high needs. And so we have a lot of those schools that we partnered with, and you'll have an opportunity to interface with many of those schools, some of which are charter schools as well. Okay, so next up, I want to talk a little bit about professional development. Some of you may know, others of you may not know, but there is a platform named Google Classroom. It's a virtual classroom that Google has created, and we use that, and we use it for two reasons. One is we want you to get familiar with what it's like to be a teacher in a Google Classroom. And the second reason is because we actually assign you assignments, and we deliver different accountability measures within the Google Classroom format. And so it's an opportunity for you to actually learn virtually through webinars or other resource packets and that sort of thing. And that's sort of our first step in helping you to understand our professional development. New volunteer orientation in the Bay Area, we just had ours last night. And that's an opportunity for you to sort of your on-ramp into being a volunteer in the classroom. It's a few hours long, and we sit with all of the new fellows and we talk them through what to expect when you get to the school site and you're actually volunteering as a guest teacher. On top of that, we have 3 institutes that we offer throughout the calendar year. One is called the Fall Institute, and that takes place around October. And that's an all-day event, usually on a Saturday, where our fellows come through and we provide extensive professional development. We may have a keynote speaker. We may have external providers that are offering information about their particular programs as they work in schools. And the Spring Institute offers the same opportunity as well, very similar to the Fall Institute. It's just the one that we do in the spring, just to bring everybody together and keep everybody up to speed and once again, share best practices. The Summer Residential Institute is an opportunity for all of the fellows across the state. And we have 4 primary regions: San Diego, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, and Sacramento. And it's an opportunity for all of us to come together as a group, as an organization, and sort of have a retreat-like experience. So it's offered over a 3-day period. And there's extensive professional development. There's all sorts of activities. There are social gatherings. We may have keynote speakers that are giving presentations. And once again, just another opportunity to really reflect on your practice and also to develop as a professional educator. So once again, in EnCorps, we offer extensive professional development opportunities as a way for you to experience your fellowship and further yourself in the career of teaching. So once again, very excited to have you all here and look forward to possibly meeting you one day soon.
Thank you, Joel. So the last person we will hear from is Charles, and he's going to get into some detail about guest teaching and what that looks like through EnCorps.
Thanks, Bethany. Exactly. The guest teaching component is sort of back to the future, back to the beginning before you do the professional development. Before I launch into that, I just want to say how exciting it was to hear people type in and talk about wanting to be on a pathway to a fulfilling career or an impactful career. And I think you'll find that most teachers and most EnCorps fellows are intrinsically motivated that way. And a lot of us are also people who are changing our careers at various ages. And that's our typical cohort. And I want you to know that we get that. I get that, especially. I came to teaching in my mid-40s after a career in the newspaper business. So I understand the challenges and the fears, and we're here to help you get through that because we know firsthand not only how difficult it is, but how rewarding it is. I've had a lot of careers, and this teaching is the most rewarding career I ever had or ever will have. And I feel like I'm still teaching because I will be helping you, mentoring, coaching you, and all of that. So for EnCorps, it all starts after you're accepted with a guest teaching component. It's unique to EnCorps. You're getting an opportunity that no other aspiring teachers get. Most go to a credentialing program at a university and they apply, and then they're told they have to do observation hours. Well, in our program, you do those observation hours first before you even typically apply to a program. We call it guest teaching because it's a combination. It's kind of a hybrid. And we have a scope and sequence that we follow that puts you in a classroom for for 10 weeks or more if you want to, for a minimum of 2 hours a week, so a minimum of 20 hours. And those 20 hours of observation can be applied to most every university program. The first thing we do, Joel and myself and Jen in Sacramento and Joel in the Bay Area and Angel and Teresa in LA, is find a placement with a middle school or a high school in a STEM classroom, either math or science. And we try to get up close to your home. We have host schools in every region, all the Bay Area, all of Sacramento, all of Los Angeles, even up into Ventura County, Orange County. We're expanding to Riverside County. And here in San Diego, we have host schools all the way from Chula Vista to Fallbrook and everywhere in between. Once you're in the classroom, we follow a model that we call gradual release of responsibility. And it's very similar to student teaching, where you come in and you observe for the first couple of weeks and just absorb, be a sponge. And we also ask you to do some of our professional development modules and give us feedback on what you're seeing in the classroom, what you're seeing from the students, what you're seeing from the teachers. And eventually, depending on how comfortable you are and how comfortable you are in the classroom and how you are working with your host teacher, the idea is that you gradually begin to interact more and more with the students. It starts by going around when they're doing independent work and monitoring their understanding. It can be taking small groups and doing small group instruction. It hopefully will graduate to teaching parts of lessons, say an introduction to a lesson, bell work we call it, or a warm-up, and eventually to teaching a whole lesson or two or more from start to finish. And that one of those lessons, we come in and observe and also evaluate based on the same standards that you will be evaluated in when you do your teacher training program, and also the same standards you will be evaluated in when you become a teacher. We'll also do a lesson plan, as you see, and we'll give you guidance in that. We have our own lesson plans. Schools sometimes have their own lesson plans. And you will always get feedback from us and from your host teacher. And that's a very big part of it. And that's something we love doing, so we want to encourage you in that. Okay, next slide, please, Bethany. So additional support, Joel had talked about the new volunteer training, which happens before you go into the classroom. And then there's at the summer residency, we also have a new teacher boot camp, understanding that you've finished your volunteer time and now you're out looking for a job, or you've just found a job, or maybe you're even already started teaching or working as an intern. There's so much support from us in very direct professional development on classroom management, on best practices, on designing lessons, but also, as you can see from this picture, we have a huge group of people who are your additional support. They're your fellows who are in the trenches with you and are great resources for understanding what teaching is all about. And then all of us are teachers also. The resume support and the support for interviewing. I know Joel and I as principals have interviewed and hired lots of teachers, so we can give you insight. And we also conduct mock interviews, and we will conduct workshops and within our institutes to give you all the tools you need and some of the language that will be helpful when you go in for your interviews, and try to demystify it for you and give you a comfort level with that. The cohort of peers, Joel touched on that. There's many places on our online platform. There's our EnCorps Fellows website. There are lots of fellow inspired groups where you're sharing ideas and you're sharing everything that comes with teaching with your fellows. I think that's it. Bethany, can you think of anything else we haven't covered?
That's excellent. Thank you, Charles. So the question, I want to actually pause here and see if our audience has any questions for Joel, Teresa, or Charles. Now would be the best time to ask those. After this, we'll move on, and I will talk a little bit about application and selection. And while we're waiting to see if anyone types some questions in, one question that I would pose for Joel, Teresa, or Charles is just, what do you hear fellows saying is the best part about being in the EnCorps Fellowship? What do you hear from our fellows?
There's so many best parts. Where do you start? I think demystifying the process of becoming a teacher. You can go on your own, but it's very difficult. It's a very customized program. Everyone has different needs, and everyone has a different comfort level with all the pieces that are involved in becoming a teacher, from volunteering in classrooms to actually applying to the college programs, going through that process, and then finding a job and being supported afterwards. It's right now, if you haven't taught, although a lot of our fellows have taught at, say, university level or community level, but going into a public high school, a high needs high school, is very different. So I would say demystifying it and supporting you.
Yeah, I would echo what Charles just said. And I would also say that, and no pun intended here, but it's the fellowship. And by fellowship, I mean the actual fellowship of fellows, like the coming together, the camaraderie, the social gatherings, the opportunity to just share ideas and to talk about one's experience. And then we also have groups that our fellows have taken leadership roles in forming that offer an opportunity for you, whomever you are, or whatever your need is, or whatever maybe, let's say, your affinity group is, for you to have a support mechanism, both in person and online. And so I think our fellows really, really, really appreciate just that camaraderie. It's almost like akin to a fraternity or a sorority in college, where you have this brotherhood or sisterhood of people who are there to support you and you to support them.
Great. I'm going to ask a couple of the questions that are coming in now, because I see quite a few questions. So a question, how much more of a time commitment is it to join EnCorps versus going through a credentialing program on your own? Teresa, actually, do you want to take a stab at this one?
Sure. You can see being a part of EnCorps as kind of helping you through the credentialing program and even preparing you for the credentialing programs, and helping even to choose. There's so many different programs out there, from intern programs to traditional programs in the university setting, that our program actually helps share those resources and helps think through even the process of applying for these credentialing programs. So I wouldn't see it as either or additional time, but seeing it as support for fellows who want that additional, mentorship and additional support in terms of the resources to actually go through the process. In determining what is the best credentialing program and even the best credential that a fellow would want to pursue.
Absolutely. I see the extra time you're going to invest as enhancing your chances for success, enhancing your chances of getting a job, because we're offering more of an insight into what teaching is. We often like to say that you all are experts in your content area. And what we do is give you a leg up on the pedagogy, that is how to teach children, and also the best practices. You will be so much better prepared when you start your credentialing program, that I think it gives you a leg up, and it really enhances your experience.
Mm-hmm. Could one of you estimate the placement rate for our fellows upon completion of the program. So I think what this person is asking is, how many of our fellows get hired after going through EnCorps? I can say my closest region, I live in the LA area, is Los Angeles, and over the last 3 years, I can say that 100% of our fellows have gotten hired that earned their teaching credential and went through our program. I'm not as familiar with the data in the other areas. So Charles or Joel, do you have an estimate on your areas?
I think it was almost everybody. I'm just thinking, I'm making a list of all the people who got hired. We have one teacher at High Tech High in Point Loma, one at High Tech High in San Marcos, one at a charter school in Encinitas. And give me a minute, I'll think of the other ones. Joel, if you want to go.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that our fellows have absolutely no problem getting a job or a position that they want. They are highly sought after once they get their credential, even before. You'll find that principals will try and get you in the door before you even have your credential, because they're, one of the things to understand is that there's a teacher shortage, not only in the state of California, but in the United States in general. And that teacher shortage shows up mainly in the STEM fields, in the STEM academic subject areas. And so if you have an industry professional who has some modicum of teaching experience or has gone through a credential program, you are super, super, super marketable. I can tell you as a former principal that if I had an EnCorps fellow that walked through my door of my school, I would be like, let's go, how can I get you signed up? So no problems in getting a position.
I thought of two other great examples. Two of our fellows from last spring. One did his guest teaching at San Diego High School in a math class, and he got a job in Poway as a full-time computer technology teacher. And another one of our fellows also was in a math classroom at San Diego High. They actually hired her as a business teacher. So lots and lots of success stories here in San Diego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo what Joel said as well. All right, so several additional questions here, some of which I can answer pretty quickly. So you start observation teaching before starting any college programs. That is correct. Basically the big first step that you take with EnCorps is to begin your guest teaching after doing the guest teaching orientation. And you're just doing that for around minimally 2 to 5 hours per week. So you can actually be completing that while you are still working in your industry. And that's your first step to really get that field experience. A lot of the credential programs that we work with require about 45 hours or so of experience in a classroom. And so the EnCorps guest teaching fulfills that. You'll do that before you enter the college credentialing program. Here's a question from the Bay Area, but it applies across the regions. Is there any way to do this program part-time or on evenings or on the weekends? Do you want to respond to that, Joel?
Sure. Not really sure what it means to be part-time because by nature we are a part-time program. But let me see if I can take a stab at the question. Your commitment for your volunteering or your guest teaching is only 2 hours a week. So it's a minimum of 2 hours a week. And our fellows, they conquer that in a variety of different ways. Some of them ask their employer, can I take an extra hour on my lunch period because I want to volunteer at the local high school? And most employers are like, yeah, sure, go for it. Some folks are retired, so they have time in their day to do that. Some folks can only go in the morning or they can only go in the afternoon. But again, I want to stress that the minimum commitment is 2 hours a week. Now, some fellows decide, I'd like to work at this school 3 or 4 days a week, and I know the teacher could use the help, so I'm going to actually do that. And they have the time and the capacity to do that. As far as other commitments, as I stated before, our fall and spring institutes, those fall on a weekend, so they fall on a Saturday. And then the summer residency institute is, you know, over a 3-day period, but you actually have a year to really sort of plan that out and mark your calendar accordingly. And outside of that, there's really, you know, the only other commitment is going to be for your time spent in the Google Classroom, and then whatever other time you want to spend in the forums, in the chat room, or engaging us in our social events and that sort of thing. So it's not really it's a pretty easy list. It's not really like you have to do a whole lot, but it's just enough for you to really be guided toward the process of you getting your credential and that sort of thing. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks, Joel. Okay, we'll go with, maybe we'll answer 2 more questions, and then we'll cover some more stuff that might actually answer some of the questions, and then we'll finish off with some more time for questions. So this one is a quick answer. How much does EnCorps cost? The answer is the EnCorps program is actually free to our fellows. Our fellows do self-fund their credentials. So the cost to you would actually be that you will go to one of our university partners or county offices of education to earn your credential. And so you would pay tuition to the university. That is not paying anything to EnCorps. You will also pay for your own exams if you take the CSET or CBEST exams, which are some of the exams required to get one of the types of credentials we support, a single subject credential. I will get into this a little bit more on our coming slides. So before we let the program team go on their way and get to the application and selection and answer some more questions, I think the program team would be best to answer these 2 questions. So one is, what are some of the obstacles that professionals coming from the STEM industries face when they are becoming teachers? Teresa or Charles, do you want to answer that?
Sure. I think Joel sort of alluded to it. The commitment varies with your life story, depending if you're working full-time now, or if you're working part-time, or if you're retired. And so the obstacle sort of increases with, well, the obstacle is different depending on where you are. So some people can afford to just dive right into their teacher training program and be a student teacher, which is working as a teacher unpaid for a whole semester. Some folks don't want to have any break in their income, and our program is really geared to those people who will enter a program, a teacher credentialing program that, say, offers all their classes at night. So that gets over the obstacle of having to attend day classes. And then there is an option for securing a job called an internship, and you don't do student teaching. You take your university courses, and with EnCorps' help, you are prepared enough to go into a classroom and get a contract that's called an internship contract. It's a full teaching contract. You're paid just like any other teacher, and you go right from your program into teaching. So there's different obstacles for different folks, and that's probably speaks to why EnCorps is so successful and why we have so many folks that thank us for being there, because we're like obstacle breakers. We help you jump over those obstacles.
Yeah, I think
Love it, Charles.
said it really
Sorry,
well.
go ahead,
I guess
Teresa.
the other thing I would add is in our last volunteer training, we were actually talking about helping fellows understand and transition from kind of a workplace corporate culture to the culture working in a public school. And so I think the volunteering time that people have in the classroom and the time that they have with mentor teachers and other EnCorps staff helps to also transition people into the classroom and understanding the culture and the students and the communities that they are going to be a part of. So I know some of our fellows feel a little bit nervous about going back into a high school classroom, but there are many, many people here to be a resource and to be a support system as that people go through that transition.
Great. Okay, last question that I'm going to ask our program team, and then we'll move on. Someone asked, how are the best fit credential programs chosen for you? Or so to start us off, we here at EnCorps will not choose them for you, but we will support you in choosing them. But do one of you want to talk about how that process looks?
Yeah, I could do that. So the credential program that you decide to go into is a choice that you will make on your own, independent of us, really. But what we do is we actually lay out for you all of the options that are within your region and beyond. And in the Bay Area, there are upwards of, like, I want to say 30 different types of programs. So you have everything from Stanford to San Jose State to San Francisco State to Alliant University, National University, which is more of an online platform. You have University of Phoenix. You have some of your private colleges, you know, Mills College and St. Mary's College and places like that. And they all have education programs. So what we help guide you through is we help guide you through taking a look at all of the options and looking at your life circumstance and your financial picture and saying, okay, this is what I think I can afford. This is how much time I think I can devote to this. And this is the program that's closest to where I live or where I work. And so I think that this is the one that I want to go with. And that's what we help you do. And then you sort of take the process from there and run with it. And you apply through the university or through the program yourself. And we help you by providing you with a letter of recommendation. There's a process for you to get that letter of recommendation. There are some accountability things that we have in place that you're required to make sure that happens before we give you that letter. But that's pretty much how that works. So once again, you know, the programs are sort of up to you to get to, but we help you along that process.
Great. All right. Well, we have just a few more slides to go to tell you a little bit about application and selection and actually the timeline of being an EnCorps Fellow. So at this time, we'll say goodbye to the program team, and I will continue on with some more information. So thank you so much to Joel, Teresa, and Charles.
Thank you all. Great talking with you, and hope to talk to you in person very soon.
Thank you. You all have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
All right. So let's talk. And I also acknowledge there are a few questions that have not yet been answered, and I will answer those at the end of our slideshow here. So I want to talk a little bit about our application and selection process. And so to start us off, we do have a set of a baseline eligibility criteria to be eligible for the STEM Teaching Fellowship. And so in order to be considered, you need to live in an area that we serve. And so that right now includes the Greater San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento area, Greater Los Angeles, and Greater Los Angeles actually includes North Orange County, Riverside, and then also San Diego. You would need to have at least 1 or more years of work or research experience as a STEM industry professional. And what that means to us is working in an industry. I'll just throw out some examples: as an engineer, as a research scientist, as an accountant. There's lots of different things that we count as a STEM industry, but industry to us means that you're not teaching these things, but you're actually working in the industry of those fields. So at least 1 year there, or you could possess an advanced degree in a STEM field as well. So one or the other. You'll need to be fully eligible to work in the United States, hold an undergraduate degree with a 2.50 GPA or higher, and not currently hold a California single subject teaching credential. So if you do meet those baseline eligibility criteria, then you would fill out our online application, and that would be the first step in being considered as an EnCorps Fellow. And it's important to note that we do not require any previous coursework or experience in education. That's not expected or necessary because we're really looking for people that have this industry experience, and then what we're going to provide to you is those experiences to work with students in education. So after the online application, the next step is that qualified applicants are invited to record a short video interview. It's just a 3-minute video where you'll answer 3 questions, and it's recorded. So you do it on your own time. In this, we're not looking for perfection, just your authentic response to our questions. And then our team reviews those videos and invites qualified applicants to the next step, which is an in-person interview. And that's where you would actually meet EnCorps team, probably some fellows in our program, and learn more about EnCorps. Those in-person interviews happen in each of our regions on a monthly basis and will happen through the beginning of May. And then the final step, if you were invited to become an EnCorps Fellow, you would sign a commitment letter and go through an easy online background check process. We are a selective program, so we take our role at finding great STEM teachers for our high need schools very seriously. In the last 3 years, about 35% of applicants were invited to that in-person interview stage. We had some questions about the timeline of joining the EnCorps Fellowship in the fall versus in the spring. I'm going to talk about the timeline here on this screen in terms of if you applied between now and our final deadline, which is April 27th. The timeline does shift a little bit if you apply in the fall, and that would just shift your time frame back a little bit, but I'll talk about that. So here we are looking at the 2020B cohort, and that would be if you applied again between now and April 27th. As a new fellow, you'll begin that online training that Joel talked about right away. You would also be invited to attend our Fall Institute in March. And then in June, you would go to our guest teaching orientation at our Summer Institute. That happens in June. And that sets you up for guest teaching that starts in the fall. If you apply here in the spring, you will be guest teaching in the fall. That guest teaching happens in the fall for a minimum of 2 hours per week at a local school site, and that can continue through the whole school year. We require at least 2 hours per week for at least one semester. And then your timeline really depends on what you choose here for the accelerated or the standard pathway. So with the accelerated pathway, you would teach in your own classroom by the fall of 2021. You can earn a single subject credential in an intern program where you begin coursework in the spring and continue that coursework throughout your first year teaching, online or in the evenings. And as an intern teacher, you earn a salary and benefits. So you're teaching and credentialing at the same time. You could also choose in the accelerated route to earn a CTE credential, where you would typically take that CTE coursework in the spring, and that lasts about 4 months. And CTE credentials, CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. These are credentials that really fall into industry sectors. So you'd be teaching subjects like engineering, manufacturing, biomedical science, information technology. What I mentioned as the single subject credential is the more traditional subjects. You would be teaching math, chemistry, physics, or biology. So again, in the accelerated pathway, you would be teaching in your own classroom by the fall of 2021. With the standard pathway, you would be teaching by fall of 2022. And so after the guest teaching next school year, you would then spend a year taking coursework and student teaching or participating in a residency program. So that's a similar thing where you take coursework and you actually spend a lot of time in a classroom with a mentor teacher in a residency program. And that's how you would earn your single subject credential. The standard timeline is a little bit longer, but it does allow you to gain a lot of field experience and training before you go into your own classroom. So if you were instead applying next fall for our program, the accelerated path would still put you teaching by fall of 2021, and the standard would still be by fall of 2022. But if you did apply next fall, you would start your guest teaching in January. So that's kind of the difference. You can actually read about those, our next fall cohort on our website as well. So let's talk a little bit about those requirements to earn your teaching credential. So I mentioned the single subject credential in math, chemistry, bio, or physics. And to earn a single subject credential, you'll need to pass what's called the CBEST and CSET exams. A CBEST exam is a basic skills test, and the CSET exam is a subject-specific test. You do not need to pass those before applying to EnCorps, but you will be taking those before you get into your credential program. You'll also obtain official transcripts. The tuition for single subject programs ranges from about $9,000 to up to $25,000, and that really depends on if you choose a public or private university. And if you're earning a single subject credential, you're typically eligible to apply for the federal Teach Grant, which can give you up to $4,000. Joel mentioned that we have our own scholarship opportunities here at EnCorps, and we're always pointing our fellows to additional scholarship opportunities. And then on the other hand, if you choose a CTE or Career and Technical Education credential, you actually don't need to complete those CSET and CBEST exams. Instead, you will show that you have been employed in that industry sector for at least 3 years. And so you'll show a verification of employment and official transcripts. Most of our fellows have gone through the Orange County Department of Education to earn their CTE credential, and then you'll do online coursework for about 3 months. And that CTE credential is around $2,500. And again, this is paid to the university or county office of education, not to EnCorps. We do not charge our fellows anything for being in the fellowship. We also will talk more about credentialing requirements and timelines at our in-person interviews. But I will be happy to answer any questions that you have as well. So I encourage you to consider teaching as your next career. I am going to answer the rest of the questions, but on our final slide here, if you've not already, I encourage you to complete our online application. We have a spring application deadline, which is February 28th, and that would be to interview by the March timeframe. We, again, host those in-person interviews in all of our regions monthly. We encourage you to apply and interview early because our final interview days tend to fill up quite a bit. We will also be hosting some social events in person in February in Los Angeles, the Bay Area, and Sacramento. We'll have a San Diego one in April as well. You can find all of those events and RSVP on our website at our calendar of events. So if you're able to, we would love to meet you in person. If you're at any point throughout the interview stage, we'll have current fellows and our staff at these social events. So it'll be a great opportunity to meet us and ask questions. And then if you do have additional questions, you can check out our website. We have a frequently asked question section. You can feel free to be in touch with me. And so that's the end of our slideshow, but I will go ahead and answer the rest of the remaining questions. All right, so